Sairam. With pronounced at the lotus feet of Bhagavan, dear brothers and sisters. We commenced last week series of talks on the subject, the reality. This is going to be the second in the series. Well, for those who were not here last time, I'll try to sum up what we had last week. We thought of certain important aspects relating to the fundamental principle of consciousness, or the spirit, or the soul. We are trying to learn more about that reality. In trying to know more and more about the reality and to experience that reality, we were also trying to understand the obstacles and other factors on our way. These are the aspects just we had a sort of a beginning of the series of talks. Well, today I would like to continue in the same wavelength. Upanishads speak of several aspects. Some of the aspects relating to the birth of man, some of the aspects relating to the life of man on earth, certain of the aspects after life, certain of the aspects relating to rebirth, various dimensions of field of action, the depths of wisdom, so many things that Upanishads convey. But one point should be made very clear to all of us. That is, these are all indications to know, to learn, and to experience, rather to realize the reality. These are only indications. To give you one example, it was Bhagavan Baba who said, mothers feed their children telling them nice stories. Children don't eat food simply like that. The mothers know much better. They go on telling some stories. Carrying the child in her arm, she'll be pointing out to the moon. There is the moon. There is the moon. The child asks, where is the moon? The mother tells, pointing her finger towards the moon. Pointing out towards the moon and the tree in between. See, between those two branches, there's some space. Look at there. There is moon. Do you mean say there is moon there? No. Mother is only showing the direction where the moon is. It's only an indication where the moon is, but not exactly at the end of the finger she points out. Am I clear? There is the moon doesn't mean there is the moon right on the top of the finger. No. That is only a direction. That is only an indication. Therefore, my friends, the Upanishadic literature gives us only a sort of indication, a sort of direction of the reality, if not of the reality. It shows the direction, that's all. Then we may begin to wonder, when once I feel the reality, when once I realize the reality, what is the next step? The next step is no more learning is needed. No more indications are necessary. Simple example. When once Armstrong landed on the moon, you don't have to tell him there is the moon there. I am on the moon. I am on the moon. You don't need to tell me where the moon is because I traveled all along. You don't have to describe moon. You don't have to tell me the definition of moon, the stories of moon, because I'm on the moon. So my friends, really, similarly, when once we experience the reality, the Upanishads, they're reading their knowledge, they drop off on their own. We do not need any more of learning. We do not need any more of acquisition of knowledge or information. That is the first point. The second point, the essence of all Upanishads, we'll be taking up one Upanishad after another Upanishad. The essence of it. The essence of all Upanishads is this, that the reality is one, and that reality is the only one, and that reality is the one without the second. That reality is one. It is the only one, and it is the one without the second. Meaning, there is only reality, nothing else. Nothing else. There is nothing like individual, there is nothing like cosmos, there is nothing like world, nothing. It is only one reality. You may call it in different names, for utilitarian purpose, for functional purpose. Well, we dealt to some extent on this aspect. So, the essence of the Upanishadic literature is the presence of one reality without the second. And then, third point, Upanishads are so compassionate, are so loving, that their approach is altogether different. Perhaps we too have to learn. Upanishads start speaking as if they agree with our views. They agree totally in agreement with our views. We are very happy. Then slowly takes you to the opposite direction, that you're proving that your view is wrong, that the reality is something different from your understanding. So it starts agreeing with you, slowly disagrees and takes you to the reality. A very nice way of brainwashing. Nice way of brainwashing. Because if you go on telling this the reality, nobody will hear. Because my concept, my idea of reality is different. Now I put it straight. What is our idea? Our idea is a dual. God and the universe. Duality. Duality is our idea. Therefore, Upanishads go on speaking of duality, and we are very, very happy. But suddenly it will take you for a fool. It's not duality. Non-duality is correct. It will finally will take you to that eternal truth of non-duality. Therefore, Upanishads is a travel from one point of view, the duality in which we live, which we are, which we understand, which we experience, to the state of non-duality. Then the doubt comes, why should it happen? How does it do? Why should it happen? Simple thing. If you want to convince anybody, first agree with him. Say, yes, you are right. What observation it is. Slowly prove that that fellow is totally wrong. Slowly. If you tell him on the face he is wrong, he will get away from you. And he will treat you as his nearest enemy. Instead of that, sir, weather is very bad. Yes, you are perfectly correct. I never expected weather to be like that. Yes, you are right. Then he comes closer to you. Then, there were no rains till recently. And people were praying for rains. And the agriculturists, the farmers, they were praying for rains. And the summer was very hot. Therefore, I think cool breeze and rains were like, therefore, you're right, he will say that. In the beginning, he will say weather is bad. You say that it is bad along with him, say yes, yes. Then take him along with you to prove that the weather is good. Am I clear? That is Upanishadic approach. So Upanishadic approach is to agree with you in the beginning, disagree with you totally, and take you to the state of reality, which is the existence, which is the only one, which is super consciousness, the one without this second. Why should it do it? How does it do it? Why I said it? Because we'll have sympathy, we'll have friendship with Upanishadic knowledge, because that friend agrees with us. Finally, he takes you to his own place, to the destination, to the goal he wants us to reach. Correct? How does he do it? Simple example. Supposing I say, this is a stick. This is a stick. Upanishads will not say it is not a stick in the beginning. It will say, it's a stick. A beautiful stick. You have found out that it is a stick. It's only possible for you to know that it is a stick. Very good. Slowly it will begin to say, if it is a stick, it cannot be made out of paper. If it is a stick, it cannot be so soft like this. You are thinking it is a stick, but it is not a stick. It is only a paper roll. You have imposed or superimposed that stick nature, that stick feature on the paper roll, and you are thinking that it is stick. No, my boy, it is only paper. So, is it a stick? No. But you are thinking it is a stick. And Upanishad also says it is a stick. And finally proves it is not a stick, that it is only a paper roll. This is what is called Adhyaropa Nyaya Vada. Adhyaropa Nyaya Vada. Adhyaropa meaning superimposition. Children play games, they will have some monkey cap and all playing that. Is the child really a monkey? No. But we also make the monkey dance. It's not a monkey actually. We impose that monkey on the child wearing the dress of the monkey. Am I clear? So similarly, Upanishads superimpose and then appear as if they agree with your view and finally show you the reality. Another example. Here is a rope. Okay? A rope lying on the ground. Being dark in the night and thinking it is a snake. Snake. Upanishads say, yes, it is a snake. You are very careful. You have done a good job. In the beginning, duality. Later it will say, there is not a snake, it is only a rope. You have mistaken it to be a snake, but it is only a rope. This is what we call Adhyaropa Nyaya Vada, the theory of superimposition. Therefore, the reality is known finally. And Upanishads say, come on, why do you think it is a snake? Don't worry, go and examine. Then I say, there is no snake. I will say, there is no snake. Upanishads say, there was never a snake. From the beginning, it has been a rope. Now you say, the snake has gone away. The snake ran away. It has not run away, it was not there. It was not there. It is only a rope. You thought it is a snake. and then you think that it has run away. Now it is a rope. Therefore, this Adhyaropanyayavada is one kind of approach of Upanishads to take you to the realm, to the horizon of the reality or consciousness. Then, another point is this. What am I to do now? What am I to do now? Why is it happening? Don't I have eyes? Why should I think a rope to be a serpent? Why? The reason is because there is no light, I am mistaking rope as a serpent. If there is light, I am not that fool. My eyes are all right. My vision is all right. I don't need any eye doctor to just check my sight. No, I am perfect. Because it is a dark or dim light of twilight, I am confused. I have mistaken the rope as the serpent. Now what is to be done? Oh, come on, get the torchlight. When once you put on the torchlight, you will understand that it is not the serpent, that it is only the rope. Therefore, the light is Upanishadic knowledge. The light is wisdom. The light is awareness. Then the moment there is awareness, you will understand that it is not the serpent, that it is only the rope. Therefore, my friends, we think the world is real. Why? We do not have the light of knowledge. We do not have light of truth. We do not have the light of awareness. Therefore, we think the world is truth. We think that I, the individual, is true. Wrong. It's because I don't have knowledge. Therefore, the next point that we have got to learn is the Upanishadic knowledge is like the light that will make you come out of that mistaken identity. Mistaken identity, meaning mistaking the rope for the serpent. So, to get out of the mistaken identity, you need that Upanishadic knowledge. That is the point. Then in relating to our personal lives, we are often mistaken. Why? Nobody wants to mistake intentionally. Why all of us are mistaken? Why? Why the whole universe is mistaken? Why the entire humanity is mistaken? Why? It is a big mistake to say that others are mistaken. Why mistake at all? The reason Upanishads say, my dear fellow, the one mistake you have done, what is that mistake? You have identified with the non-self. The self, the reality. Instead of identifying with the reality, you are identifying with the non-reality or non-self. Therefore, all my vision is nonsense. So, the identification is with the non-reality or anatma. Reality is atma, the consciousness. Non-reality is anatma. Because of my attachment with anatma or non-reality, mistaken identity, illusion, delusion, rope viewed as a serpent, thereafter getting frightened and shouting. Suddenly Upanishads say, stop shouting, put the light, understand it. Am I clear? Therefore, my friends, we are mistaken because we identify with the non-self or anatma bhava. Simple example. Instead of carrying my voice, my tone, by drinking water now and then, or having some lozenge, something like that, if I identify with the mic and say, mic is not proper, therefore I am not speaking, well, some of you will get up and say, mic is alright, something wrong with your tone. Supposing I start singing, which is not melodious, and I say, let me break the mic because my singing doesn't seem to be good. Somebody will say, nothing wrong with the white gentleman, something wrong with the Shruti and Tala. Correct your music first or stop music. But don't blame the mic. Similarly, I identify with the external world, I identify with anatma, non-self, and commit a mistake. Therefore I am deluded and think that rope is a serpent, get frightened, make a complaint and a big issue of it. It is my mistake. That's what Upanishad does. Now what do they do? Therefore Upanishad say, look here young man, only thing we want you to do, only one thing. What is it? Till now you have turned your view towards non-self. The mirror is turned towards you, meaning non-self. What I say is, turn the mirror towards the self. Turning the mirror from the non-self to the self. That's only you have to do, that's all. There is a mirror. You are all seeing and adjusting your craft, how nice it is. But I go on blaming you, I don't see my image there. I do want to see how awful I look. I do want to correct my hair standing in front of the mirror. What should I do? The mirror is turned towards your side till now. That mirror has to be turned towards my side so that I can see my own image. Okay, that's it. Am I clear? Similarly, we have to change our view. We have to change our perspective. We have to change our dimension. We have to change our viewpoint. Then we will understand the reality, the self, or the consciousness. Then one thing is this. The point is, what I would like to make is this. Okay, now, if I am the self or consciousness, good. I know what is happening right now. I know the time also. I know the people. I know the situation. I know the place where we have assembled. So the individual consciousness, I know the time and space. The individual consciousness is restricted by time and space. I know the time, I know the space. I know what happened when I was born. I know what happened in my childhood. I know what had happened in my college days. I know what had happened during my career. I know what had been taking place as on this day. I just imagine what would happen in future. That's all. But supposing if anyone asks me, do you tell me what happened before you were born? Can anybody tell me what happened before you were born? I don't know. I say. Would anyone tell me what would happen after we leave this world? I do not know. So I do not know what happened before. I do not know what would happen later. Meaning, my awareness is not beyond time. My awareness, individual I-ness, individual consciousness is not beyond time. Because I do not know what happened before, I do not know what happened after. The individual consciousness is also not beyond space. I know what is happening here. If anyone asks me, would you tell me what is happening in the mandir? I do not know. Do you know what is happening at the railway station? I do not know. Do you know what is happening in New York? Well, I don't know what is happening in the railway station here. How do I know New York there? I don't know. Meaning, my individual consciousness is limited by space. And this individual consciousness, which is limited by time and space, is nothing but the super consciousness which is beyond time and space. The super consciousness which is beyond time and space, and that super consciousness encased, limited to within the individual body, within the individual as individual consciousness. So within me, it is individual consciousness. All over, it is super consciousness. This super consciousness in me is the individual consciousness. Both are same. The difference is individual consciousness is limited by time and space, while super consciousness is beyond time and space. Why? That is the question. Why? If individual consciousness and super consciousness are same, why am I limited by time and space? Why is it not limited by time and space? Because we belong to computer age, we are sufficiently scientific in our understanding, we are certainly technological in our approach, befitting space age, because we know space travel, astronaut, cosmonaut, ultimately has become a nutcase. Naturally we doubt why the individual consciousness is limited by time and space. Why not the super consciousness not limited by time and space? While at the same time we agree that individual consciousness, super consciousness are one and the same. Being same, why the difference? Is the next question. The answer is simple. Because of name and form. Because of name and form. Nama and Rupa. The name and form. If you want to add third, Vikriya, action. Nama, Rupa, Vikriya, the name, form and action. These three have conditioned the super consciousness to individual consciousness. Simple example. I bring a balloon. I blow the air. The balloon is full now. Where from the air has come? I have not created air now. I have not pumped air into that. I am not capable till now. I don't think I would in future. After all, the air outside. The air outside is pumped into the balloon, that's all. Air outside is pumped into lorry tire. Air outside is pumped into cycle tire. Air outside is pumped into the wheels of an aeroplane. It is all the air outside. And it's pumped into these tires. The quality of the air is same. But the air in the tire is individual consciousness. The air all around is super consciousness. That's all. But I don't call the tire, air, come on, run. No, it's a tire. I have blown the air, it's full now. Oh, air, come on. Oh, no, it's not, it's balloon. So, when the air has gone into that form and name, it is limited. Such as a balloon and such as a tire. Therefore, the balloon has got limited air. So, come on, blow further. It bursts, that's all. Similarly, I being limited within this body, bound by time and space, the individual consciousness or prajna. Prajna is individual awareness, is limited, whereas the super consciousness, the Brahman, the reality is beyond time and space, is the teaching of the Upanishads. Then there are some people that say, of course these things must have been said last week, but since I see many faces You'll pardon me if I repeat again. These things have to be repeated again and again because we take at least 4 cups of coffee a day. Why not 4 times reading Upanishads, which are more precious than a cup of coffee? I think so. If you think coffee is more than Upanishad, okay. I too love coffee. I don't complain, you see. So the point is this. There are some people that say, no, gentlemen, I am the image of God. Good. God is there, I am his reflection. Good. Now my question is, Sal Upanishads only, collected from Swami's literature. What I am trying to do is get the essence from Upanishads, mix it with Sai's speeches, and share whatever collection, whatever information I have, more for my own benefit. Because I have got full awareness that most of you know more than what I know. We are happy to share, that's all. To share, that's nothing more. Now, then I think that I am the image of God, then I think that I am the reflection of God. The question is this: when do you get reflection? When does the problem or the question of image arise? Okay? When I am here, stand in front of the mirror, yes, I am here, my reflection is there. Correct? Correct. When I am here, there is my shadow. Right? My shadow cannot be there without me. I cannot say, sir, I am sitting here. My friend, please find out my shadow. Please call him inside. You will immediately say, Mr. Anil Kumar, your place is not this hall. The mental hospital is there. So I cannot be here, my shadow elsewhere. I cannot say, see, my image is very bad. Please bring that image. Bring that reflection. Why that reflection is bad? You are like that, therefore reflection. What can I do? As is the object, so is reflection. Agreed. So without you, there cannot be reflection. Without you, there cannot be image. Am I clear? Now, in front of the mirror, I see my reflection. Good. Remove the mirror. Where is the reflection? Where is the reflection? Then you will say there is no reflection because there is no mirror. When there is mirror, you and the reflection. When there is no mirror, you alone is present. Am I clear? Similarly, body is the mirror. Body is the mirror. And God is the reflection here. God is the consciousness. God is the consciousness in me. The body being the mirror. Then once the body is gone, what happens? It is only super consciousness that remains. The finite and the infinite are one. The determinate and indeterminate are one. Am I clear? Therefore, my friends, to say that the individual is the reflection of God, to say that individual is the image of God is wrong. But in the beginning we say, you are right. Upanishads say that. You are right. You and reflection are correct. You are very much correct. Then after some time they will say, remove the mirror. Then it will question you, where is the reflection? Then it's, oh, I see. Not two, only one present. When there is mirror, two are present. I and the reflection. When the mirror is not there, I only remain. Similarly, then once this body attachment, body consciousness, when the name and form are given up, it is the reality that stays. That reality is existence. That reality is super consciousness, which is very much the same in everyone. which is very much the same all over the cosmos, which is very much the one without the second, the reality, the ultimate. That's the point what I would like to draw your attention. Then another point is this. So my problem is solved now. Why? I'm thinking that I'm separate. I'm thinking that the reflection. Now it is proved that I am not the reflection. Now it is proved that I am not the image. Now it is proved that I am the awareness, that I am the consciousness, that I am the reality. To quote Baba, I am God. When Baba says, I am God, what does it mean? I don't have the feeling that I am God because of name and form. When once the name and form are gone, you will understand that you are God. Because of name and form, I feel that I am separate from God. This separateness is because of name and form. So my problem is solved because now it is clearly understood. I am not separate from God. The theory of duality is nonsense. The duality has come because of this mirror problem, and the mirror is only the body. When once the mirror is gone, there is no image and there is no reflection, I only remain. So there is nothing like the individual and God, only God. This problem is solved. Now the second problem, the world. The world is there. I cannot say if I say there is no world, then you'll ask me, Mr. Anil Kumar, are you in the other world? If we say there is no world, you'll ask me, are you in the other world? Where are you? Are you not in this world? The answer is this. There is no world either. Why? I see the glass. Why? It is existing. Suppose if the glass is not there, if I say there is a glass, what do you say? There is no glass. Can I say there is glass? No. If I say there is glass, then you will say, Mr. Anil Kumar, you are having some problem, nightmare problem, some dream problem, some psychic problem. There is no glass. So you can only see that which is in existence. Clear? And not only that which is in existence must be seen also. It is seen. Therefore, my friends, 2 points here. One, existence, Sat. The second, Chit, being noticed, being seen. Sat, Chit are the qualities of this world. All are in existence, Sat. So there are a number of mountains there near Kashmir. Because they are there, you say they are mountains. I cannot say there are many mountains here. And there are no more, how do you say that? So that which is in existence can only be said. Sat. That which is in existence can only be seen. Prakasha. Prakasha. Seen in the light. Seen. Noticed. Cognized. Felt. Am I clear? That is what is called Chit. So Sat, Chit are the qualities of this world. Sat, Chit are the qualities of God also. So how can this be different from Him? See that? When the world is Sat, when God is Sat, how can this world be different from God? When the world is Chit, when God is Chit, how can this world be different from God? Because Sat, Chit are the qualities of God and the world. Therefore, this world is not separate from God, my dear boy. Upanishads tell you that this world is not separate from God, it is God only. You are not separate from Him, you are God. World is not separate from Him, world is also God. So, what is present? Only God. That's all. Therefore, in the beginning itself we said, the Upanishadic statement that the reality is one, that the reality is the only one, that the reality is the one without the second. without the second. So, as individuals, we are not the second, we are divine. As the world, it is not the second, it is divine. So, it's only one consciousness, it is only the one reality. That's all. That's what's the teaching of Upanishads. I think much of the details that we discussed till now must have already been dealt in the last week. I think so, if my memory is right, conditioned by time and space, of course. Now we'll begin, to some extent, within the limited time, the first Upanishads, Ishavasya Upanishad. Ishavasya Upanishad is the first Upanishad. For your information, Upanishads are the ultimate of Vedic literature. Ultimate of Vedic literature. Therefore, Upanishads are called Vedanta. Veda, spirituality, Anta, the ultimate. Vedanta, Upanishadic literature. So, let us study the Upanishadic literature, Upanishads one after one to the extent possible, taking only the essence. If not every sloka stanza after stanza in a conventional style, instead of that, we'll take the essence and take Swami's literature and make a blend of each other and try to understand, the grasp, experience what is to be learned, what has to be grasped in satsangs like this. So, Ishavasya Upanishad is the first Upanishad of all the Upanishads. It is the first Upanishad of all the Upanishads. As I have noted, my friends, having gone through all the book, Ishavasya Upanishad, I could understand that Ishavasya Upanishad wants us to know, wants us to learn 4 points. Yes, a book may be very book of this size. Points are 4. Somebody said, can you say Ramayana in 3 words? Yes. Katte kotte teche. Katte. Yes. Completely tied up. And Ravana kotte. He was beaten. Teche. Sita is brought back. 3 words. Ravana is attacked, Ravana is killed, and Sita is brought. Katte. That bridge is made. Katte is constructed. Right across the sea, the bridge is constructed. 1. Ravana is killed. 2. Sita is brought back to Ayodhya. 3 words. Whole Ramayana. That's all. So, in that way, let us take the essence of it and try to understand, because we are not going to appear for any examination in Upanishads, and we are not interested to get the whole of Upanishad, get by heart, which is a futile exercise and waste of time at this age. So let us try to understand the essence of it. So my friends, this Ishavasya Upanishad, the first Upanishad, tells us 4 major points. The first point is this, that the whole world is filled with divinity, nothing else. The whole cosmos, universe is full of divinity. Ishavasyam idagam sarvam. Ishavasyam idagam sarvam. The sarvam, the whole thing, Ishavasyam, full of God, divinity. That is the first point that Ishavasya Upanishad drives home. The second point, Tyena Chektena Bhunjita. Tyena Chektena Bhunjita is the second teaching of Ishavasya Upanishad. What is it? Tyena Chektena, sacrifice. Bhunjita, partake. 2 points here. Sacrifice. What am I to sacrifice? I don't have anything to sacrifice. Ishavasya Upanishad says, sacrifice, give up the feeling of body attachment. Nama and Rupa, Chena Chiktena. Give up these two, the name and form. How to give up? Shall I commit suicide or what? How to give up? What do you mean? Meaning, don't get yourself attached to your name. Don't get too much identified with your form. He explains with so many. Baba gave number of examples on this particular point. We shall try to know in due course of time. Therefore, the first teaching of Ishavasya Upanishad is that the entire universe is filled with divinity. That is only divinity that is all pervading, all encompassing, all embracing. And the second point is Chena Chiktena Bhunjida. Give up the body identification and the name. Bhunjida. Partake, then experience. Meaning you can only experience that reality, that God is everywhere, if only you give up name and form. You understand? If doctor wants to see my chest, what will he do? This is a season of cough and cold. We find every ordinary person coughing right on our face at times. So what is to be done? He wants to test my chest. What should I do? I should remove my coat. I should remove my shirt. I should remove my bunion. And then, sir, come on, have your stethoscope, examine my chest now. So similarly, if you want to experience that super consciousness, if you want to experience that reality, come on, give up your attachment to name and form. Chena Chiktena. Give up that. Bhunjida. Then you can experience. That is the second point. We learn in every detail these points subsequently, how Swami explains. The third point, Ma Grudha Kasya Siddhanam. Ma Grudha Kasya Siddhanam is the third lesson that Ishavasya Upanishad teaches. What is the meaning? We think the houses, the bank accounts, the position, all our comforts, conveniences is dhana, the wealth. Dhana, the wealth. Ma grudhakasya siddhanam. Don't aspire. Don't aspire. Don't work for. Don't struggle yourself for that wealth, because it is not true wealth. Ma grudhakasya siddhanam. Don't aspire for that wealth at all, because it is not true. All the wealth you consider to be true is not true, is not the reality. We know paupers becoming millionaires. We have seen many people. Millionaires becoming paupers. Paupers becoming millionaires. We know that. So what is true? We know the people in position. We also have seen people who lost their position. We know people who are elected to position. We also know people who are thrown out of position. So what is true? Nothing. So all that you consider to be wealth is not true. Chena Chiktena Bhunjida. Don't aspire for that kind of wealth which is not true, says the third lesson of Ishavasya Upanishad. And then the fourth one is this. The next lesson it teaches is, you may ask the question, why? Why? Why should I know that the whole cosmos is filled with divinity? Why should I know? I may also get a question, why should I give up my attachment to my body and my name? Because my name is known to everybody. My body seems to be tolerably all right. Why should I give up? Why should I not aspire for wealth? Ma Gurda Kasya Siddhanam, oh Upanishad, you say that I have to give up. No, why? Because these days we cannot tell anybody. They will ask you why and why not. We have to answer them. The next question, why? The answer is quite simple. It explains you very clearly what the benefit of this is. That is, it is clearly said, yes, written clearly here. You will not have any kind of misery, any kind of bumps and jumps in life, any kind of shocks. No. Yatra sarvani bhutani atmaiva bhudvijanataha tatra ko moha kashokaha ekatvam anupasyataha. That's what Upanishad says. When once you understand the reality, that's the only one that exists. There is no pain, there is no pleasure. There is no attachment, there is no detachment. You will be in a blissful state. Kasyokaha. You will not have any kind of misery. Moha. You will not have any kind of attachment. Ekatvam anupashyati. You will have that ekatva, that oneness, the balanced state of life. This is the next teaching of Ishavasya Upanishad. The fourth point, the final teaching of this Upanishad is this. Yes, we have two forms of knowledge. One is two ways to oneness. Ekatvam anupasyati. To experience that oneness, to experience that one reality. There are two ways. One is Vidya, other one is Avidya. Vidya, Avidya. People may say, I have got Vidya, the knowledge. My dear man, you may have Vidya. You may have all knowledge of the scriptures. But it will not confer moksha or liberation. Scriptural knowledge will not give you liberation. Vidya. Why? Scriptural knowledge will take you to deities or devatas. And you enjoy their company. You will be one with them. Those deities, those angels, those celestial bodies. But that is not moksha. So Vidya is not the way. Then the second, Avidya. What is Avidya? They will say, do pradakshina, do worship, go on pilgrimage, stop eating every night. I would add, stop eating in the day also. Don't wear dress, very good. The problem is solved. So these are the ritualistic things, karma kanda, action, karma. It will not give you liberation. At the most, it will take you to Pitruloka, where our forefathers are there. So, Avidya will take you to the state of your forefathers, where they are. Vidya will take you to celestial bodies, but not liberation, but not moksha. So when Vidya cannot take, Avidya cannot take, which will take me? That will be your question. Yeah, again, Upanishad comes back to first statement. What is it? Give up nama rupa. Dispense with the attachment with your name and form. Chena chaktena bunjira. Then once you sacrifice, then you will experience Ishavasyam idagam sarvam. That the universe is filled with the divinity. These are the four main teachings of this Ishavasya Upanishad. We learn point after point in the coming week. Thank you for your gracious presence. May Bhagavan bless you. Sai Ram. Because my friends, we studied enough of experiences. We had enough of experiences. We know enough of stories. but the life is not full of stories. No. Parents have given us chocolates to go to schools in the beginning. We cannot expect our parents to give us chocolates when I go to the college, when I go to the university, when I do my research. My father won't come in, lift me in his arms and give me chocolate every time. So the experiences we have, the stories we have, they are only chocolates, visiting cards. But life cannot be totally a chocolate affair. It is something more serious. Something that deals with the inquiry. Bhagavan has spoken a lot on these matters, which I have decided to share with my learned, experienced friends gifted to me by Bhagavan Baba on every Sunday. Thank you very much. May Bhagavan bless you. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrutyorma Amrutangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Jai Bolo Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba Ji ki. Jai Bolo Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba Ji ki. Jai Bolo Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba Ji ki. There you go. Thank you.
Om Tare